What's up guys, welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding, and today is going to be a back day, and it's really getting serious now because we are under 14 weeks removed from the Mr. Olympia. And before it was a doubt whether we could actually go to America, but now it's pretty sure every international athlete can go, so we have to take this prep very seriously, and the back can never be big enough. I always like to start out with a pull down movement to warm up the whole back, and then we're going to do some heavy rowing movement. But first, the V grip pull down.
So, as I mentioned, I was, under 14 weeks out in this video. Right this moment, as I'm speaking to you guys, I am about 10 and a half weeks out, so my conditioning has improved quite a lot from when this video was shot. But these professionally edited videos are, delayed a little bit, of course, compared to the videos that I make, which I simply shoot, edit, and upload. And the person who shoots this video for me, his Instagram page is Unrestrained Media. It's a starting page, so if you would like to follow him, do make sure to, because a lot more content will be shown. But anyway, this is a back day. And as I mentioned, the back can never be big enough, no matter the width or the thickness. And what we're working on now is the back width, first of all. That can never be wide enough. The V shape, especially in classic bodybuilding, is very important to have. And you can see when I'm going up on this V-bar pull down that I'm really stretching out those lats. And it is that stretching motion that is the only thing that will give you a wide back. So don't look at the weight as much during a movement like a pull down, because if you do and you want to improve yourself time and time again, you will simply start to cheat yourself and not go all the way up just to be able to handle that new weight, and that is not what you want. So always go all the way up and all the way down. The bigger the stretch, the better the contraction. You can also see my shoulder blades. So when I'm going all the way up, you can see my shoulders retracting, and that is also the middle traps contracting, the lower back contracting, so the whole back is being targeted by this movement. You can also see that this stack right here, a gym pin is being attached to it, which basically looks like the the back end of a barbell. You simply put your plates on it, and it'll be, of course, heavier than the stack can go. And that is especially in a gym where the stack or just simply feels very light. That is when you should add a gym pin like that, if that is allowed and if that is possible in your gym. Now, I have an affiliate code with a gym pin to get a percentage off, and you can check it out in the description below, and you can use code VG5 for your discount on that website. It's pretty awesome, I have to say. And this is my second working set, doing as many reps as I can, trying to keep the form intact to make sure I target all those back muscles and nothing else.
Alright guys, time for the second exercise, and this one is going to be a pure row movement for the back thickness. One of the best back old school exercises, the bent over row or the barbell row. We're actually going to do the barbell row today because the bent over row will be, in my opinion, parallel to the floor with the upper body, and the barbell row is simply in a 45-degree angle, which makes it easier and also targets the traps and the back things in the upper back a bit more, which is what I need to build. So we just warmed up with the V-bar or small grip pull down, and now we're going to do a slightly wider grip bent over row or barbell row. Let's do it.
So as I said, first we did a narrow grip, so the pull down variation I did was with a V-bar attachment, and that is quite a narrow grip. And bodybuilding is all about hitting the muscle from as many angles as possible. And the easiest way to do this is by changing the grip. So for example, if you would be doing the V-bar pull down and then the seated row with a narrow grip, and then doing a dumbbell row very close to the body, you will hit the back in different exercises, but the grip width doesn't change, and that leaves some room for improvement in terms of hitting the back musculature in different ways. So as a bodybuilder, if I can choose a second rowing movement, then I would opt for a slightly wider grip compared to the first movement, so that I do hit another portion of the back more efficiently. To give you a more practical example, that the V-bar pull down, that actually targets the outer lats more because that's a narrow grip. The more width your grip has, the more on the inside of the back you will feel and target the contraction. You will target those muscles there. So that's why if you use different grip widths, you will automatically hit the back from different angles, from different contractions. So we're basically going from the outside to the inside by changing these two movements. And you can see me doing the barbell row. I'm not calling it the bent over row, because with a bent over row, your upper body needs to be pretty much parallel to the floor. But if I do that with a too heavy of a weight, what happens then is that my lower back starts to get impaired. So if I ever do that variation, I would put it at the end of the workout.
It's time for the third exercise, and it's going to be a seated row, another old school movement. So we just did the bent over row, the barbell row, and now we're going to do a seated row, but keep in mind this grip is also wide. And the wider the grip, the more to the inside of the upper back you're working, so the back thickness on the upper side and the middle side will be worked with this exercise as opposed to a narrow grip. So that's why I like the wide grip a bit more. Full range of motion, but don't rock your back forward because we're not working the lats, we're only working the back thickness. Let's do it.
So in my videos of about 2 to 3 years ago, I did a lot of rocking back and forth, as I just mentioned, in the seated row, because then it was possible. But if you look at the range of motion on this seated row, it was not possible to even do that. So at first I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I can't do those classic Ronnie Coleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger seated rows like I always see in those videos, which I emulated myself. But then I thought, well, actually that for me would not be the best thing to do, because all that does is work your erector muscles, your lower back, which for me is not a weakness, but actually it's a structural weakness because I injured it many years ago, so that's a no-no. And at the same time, if I rock back and forth, it will work more the outer lats, because you get a bigger stretch in the lats at the very end of the range of motion, and you will actually lose tension in the part of the back you want to work, which is the rhomboids and the lower lats. That for me is precisely where my back lacks in weakness, which might actually be caused by always doing that extreme range of motion rowing I used to do.
Okay, after the seated row with two hands at the same time, we're now going to do a unilateral movement. And that's the benefit of this machine. It has two separate cables, so you can actually use both arms at the same time, but still move them unilaterally. But now we're first going to start with the weakest side, the left side, and then finish with the strong side, the right side. And we're also going to extend the range of motion by grabbing the opposite handle. So if you use your right arm, you grab the left handle and vice versa. So let's do it.
So you don't really have to complicate things when you're in a gym and you are already on a machine that has versatile equipment. So I just did that wider grip seated row right here, which was good for the inner rhomboids as I mentioned. And now I'm doing the exact same machine, but with different attachments and making it unilateral at the same time. So I'm sitting at the exact same spot, but doing a completely different movement. And that is what you should do in most gyms, because most gyms are super busy, so you might as well make use of the space you're already occupying. But anyway, we are not only working the rhomboids here, but also the lats. using this unilateral grip. And as I mentioned, if you have your left arm, you grab the right handle and vice versa. It allows for a greater range of motion. And if you look at my back here, you can actually see that lats on the side stretching, and you can see the trap and the rhomboids contracting. And that full range of motion is very different compared to that seated row where the range of motion was limited. So now you can actually still use the natural way your back works. So your back musculature really never works from a straight line. So this actually goes around your back. This is also how you should do a dumbbell row, for example. You shouldn't go up and down in a straight line, but your lat wraps around your body, as you can see, and that's the more natural way of contracting and stretching that muscle. So it really feels quite amazing to do this exercise. And you can also work on your weak points here, because I am aware that my left lat is a little bit smaller than the right one. So an imbalance is not what you want, especially as a classic bodybuilder. So you want to always incorporate some unilateral movements to work on imbalances. A lot of people ask me, what do I do if I have a bigger muscle than the other? Always start out with the weakest muscle and match the reps with the stronger side.
Next one will be the rec pulls in the strength machine, and the reason why it's in the strength machine is because it's very easy to then attach bands to the rec pull, to the barbell, and I like it because then the upper part becomes the most difficult, and the upper part is the back movement. I don't want to strengthen my legs, I want to strengthen and make my back grow. So having a band, the higher you go, the more difficult it gets. So that's why we're starting out with 2 bands in total. We might add some extra bands for extra resistance, but this is great for the back thickness, for the traps, etc. So why not do it in this workout as well? So let's get started.
Honestly, I saw this movement on Instagram one day done by Hunter Labrada, and I've always done rec pulls from years ago, and usually I do it in a power rack, so it's a free barbell, but then it would be difficult to attach those bands. Of course it's possible, but it takes a bit more effort to do so. But then I was like, well, we have a strength machine that allows me to add those bands in a perfect way, in a perfect line with the barbell, in a very safe way as well. So it's very amazing to use this rec pull and not feel it in the legs or lower back at all. Just feel it, well, I do feel it in the lower back of course, but not in the wrong way. Because I used to feel like an impingement, or I used to feel my spine or a nerve. Nothing like that anymore, because this mimics more the back musculature compared to using a very super heavy barbell, where at the very bottom, where mostly the erector muscles and the legs are doing the work, while at the top you want to feel, well, in the half range of motion, at the top half of the range of motion, that's where you want to feel most of the tension, because that's where the back is doing most of the work relative to the legs. So I'm also wearing a belt right here. It says Wesley Vissers, but we have a vintage genetic variation on vintagegenetics.com. Thank you very much for the incredible support over the years, and it just feels amazing to grind those reps all the way up and just feeling it in the back. And now I'm doing some reps with a slightly lighter weight, keeping the bands the same, but you know, the weight is lighter, and that's a very easy way to do another working set. So I just did a working set completing all of the reps, knowing I wouldn't have been able to do another clean rep, and that's where you hit failure. If you go beyond that, it's going to become dangerous. And you can see right there, some strength machines tend to jam up a little bit with those hooks, so we're getting a new one from ATX Gym Equipment, which is an amazing brand, which we already put in this gym. A video will be coming soon about this gym transformation, putting some ATX equipment in this gym, and it all started with the ATX belt squat, which has really proven to be the most amazing squat you can possibly do, in my opinion.
The last movement for the back is going to be for the rear delts or the upper traps as well. So if you train the rear delts a lot, it'll balance out with the front delts, and that'll create a situation where you have a lot less shoulder injuries. It's good for shoulder mobility, and if you do a side chest, you want the rear delts to be popping out so everything is balanced. And a lot of people have underdeveloped side delts, rear delts, which we're going to train now with the face pulls, sitting down on a bench, so you have some frontal body support, some chest support to stay upright, so you can actually pull all the way back for a maximum shortened contraction. Let's do it.
I've been doing this for years now, and that is performing an exercise for the rear delts, the posterior delts, after doing my back exercises. A lot of people train the delts, the shoulders, and put the rear delts at the very last exercise. First they do the front delts, then the side delts, then the rear delts. But at the same time, we see that the rear delts are lacking in most people. The front delts are fine, side delts are, most of the time a bit mediocre, and the rear delts are simply lacking. I'm talking about the average person here. So, if you want to fix this, you have to put those rear delt exercises somewhere where it makes sense. So, first of all, if you work the shoulders, put them at the first movement if that is the shoulder head that is lacking mass. And then the side delts, and end with the front delts. A video about that will be coming very soon as well. But also when doing the back, you already worked the rear delts automatically, but you haven't got the failure specifically on those muscles yet. It's a small muscle, so isolating them with a lot of volume will do the trick to make them grow. So just doing some face pulls or rear delt fly at the very end of a back workout will help tremendously.
Okay, we finished the back off nicely with finishing off the rear delts and the traps using the face pulls. Now it's time to finish off the workout with some bicep movements. 2 bicep movements, and the first one is going to be actually a close grip hammer curl with a barbell, using a new barbell we recently got, the ATX multi-grip barbell, and the middle grips are actually like this, just like an easy curl bar which goes inwards. It's more healthy for the wrists, but it's a little bit more angled like this, so it's a bit more of a hammer curl hybrid. So let's get started.
Now this is a very nice barbell. Normally you would use it a lot for close grip bench press or regular grip bench press, where you actually go a bit wider than shoulder grip, but with a much more desirable grip because it doesn't hurt or impact your shoulders at all. But that's for another video. Here we are doing the hammer curls with the middle grip, and the middle grip is angled like that, usually for a close grip bench press to alleviate your wrists a little bit, but we are now using it for the hammer grip. As you can see in the second set, I actually turned around the barbell to allow for a bit more of a forearm and brachialis targeted curl. This way you can actually work a lot more on the bicep thickness, and the thickness is very important for example, for me, if I do a front relaxed or even a side chest, having that brachialis muscle pop out just looks very great, and in my opinion, very classic as well. So what you want to do is go higher than 90 degrees. So when I'm going up, I don't stop at 90 degrees, I go up higher to get a maximum contraction of the bicep and also the brachialis. If you look closely, you can see in between the bicep and the tricep there, you can see a little bump. It'll be more apparent when I'm more conditioned, but that will actually grow when doing this exercise a lot. And also the forearms, which is very important. You don't want big upper arms and small forearms, but that will cause the bicep thickness to be enormous.
Right, the last one for the biceps is one of the best ones for the biceps, the concentration curl. Really focus on the peak of the biceps, and that's exactly what you want in biceps. You want the mass, but also the peak to go along with it. And with this exercise, it's very easy to focus on that peak contraction. So let's get started.
Simply one of the greatest bicep exercises you can do. I know there are a lot of coaches and people out there preaching for machine work or cable work for constant tension, but still to this day, nothing has given me the contraction in the biceps compared to the concentration curl. So that to me is number one for feeling that peak contraction. But it is all about arm positioning and arm placement. If you look at my arm, how it's angled against the leg, it's not straight down. I could choose for this if I would sit a little bit different. My arm would actually angle way more downwards, and what would that do? It will result in a loss of tension at the stretched position. Now, because my arm is pretty much angled like a preacher curl, so what I'm basically doing is I'm using my leg as a preacher curl bench. Because of that angle, the tension will not be lost, especially when you control the eccentric motion or the motion going down. You control this and you feel that nice stretch on the bicep. You feel the bicep fibers being pulled from another, and that will cause bicep damage and ultimately bicep growth. And then you go all the way up, making sure you feel that proper peak contraction. Now, if you look closely at my bicep, you can see that it's not just contracting, but it's peak contracting. Maybe it's difficult to see, but I can see this and I can feel in my head what I felt back then. It's a contraction that is stronger than a contraction you would normally get if you just, tense it normally. So this dumbbell, this exercise, this positioning, this movement causes that peak contraction to exist. If only I could do a front double bicep or a back double bicep and make the bicep peak like in this movement, that will be quite amazing. But yes guys, this is an old school movement, free weight. As you notice throughout my videos, I like to do a lot more free weight movements for the biceps, because I feel like even though machines and cables might have more bicep tension throughout the range of motion, I simply feel that because most free weight movements have the biggest contraction and biggest tension at the very top, if you do it correctly, that will cause more of a bicep growth in the peak department, which is exactly where you want it. I'm pretty sure if I ask you guys, what do you want more? Do you want a balanced overall massive bicep, or do you want a slightly more imbalanced but a more of a peaked bicep, which simply looks more aesthetic? Which would you choose? Yes, a lot of people would want a balanced bicep but no peak, just a full bicep. We want the peak. Of course we want both, but if you have to choose, I would stick to exercises like this for the proper peaked bicep, making that outer head longer and bigger, stronger, higher than the inner head, causing that bicep peak to exist. And also using your other arms to help with this movement really adds to the effectiveness of this curl.
Alright guys, that was the back and bicep workout. As you can see, most sets are going to be to failure, at least the last few sets of each exercise. And I aim to get stronger every single time to improve on the back progression, especially the back thickness. Mostly old school basic movements to grow the back. And for the biceps, always just finish them off after the back, and with an arm day, that's when they get their own focus. I want to thank you for watching, and don't forget to stay golden.